Hi, I'm Morgan. Today, as of recording, it is June 27th, which is Helen Keller's birthday. And so I decided, you know what, I want to make a video talking about like my thoughts on her, what she means to me, and stuff like that. So the first time I learned about her was in a children's book. I would have been about 6.5 years old at the time because I really struggled to read. I couldn't recognize what were called sight words, which were a really big deal when I was in like kindergarten, and in first grade I was still struggling. But the first book that I remember like actually reading myself and not just like other people reading to me and then me memorizing the story, the words and stuff. The first book that I remember actually reading myself was one about Helen Keller. And I remember it was a situation where the school that I was at, there were like books that we could choose to read between, and we were supposed to stick with ones that were like at our level or whatever. And I can't remember if it was a situation where it was like misplaced or if it was one where I was just going to pretend that it was misplaced, but I remember knowing that it was like supposedly above my reading level, but picking it out anyway. And I don't 100% remember what drew me to that book, but I remember a lot of very vivid details about it. For instance, the thing that really stood out to me or stuck with me was that Helen Keller, like, she threw a doll. She broke a doll. She'd been given a doll and she threw it. She threw it, and then she realized she couldn't put it back together again. And that's something that just like it's struck with me. It stuck with me because I remember at one point when I was young, like, I threw a lamp and realized and I started like bawling my eyes out when I realized, wait, I can't put the lamp back together again. And so that just I remember like relating very, very heavily to this little girl in this book, to Helen Keller, because I'd learned that same life lesson through my own experiences, and so I related very heavily to her. Like I really I thought her story was relatable, oddly relatable, and very inspirational. And I don't know if I'd been diagnosed with autism at that point. I think that diagnosis might have come a little bit later on, but I was different than a lot of other people. And even though I might not have known it at the time, like, I am disabled, I am in a lot of ways similar to Helen Keller because, yeah, she was blind and deaf, and I can see and I can hear, but I'm neurodiverse. I am on the autism spectrum, and I relate to other people in different ways than the neurotypical population does. And I struggled with things that other people at my same age level were excelling at. Like, it took me a lot longer to learn how to read than a lot of other kids did. So yeah, like, Helen Keller's story is like, it's in a lot of ways, I think it inspired me. It helped me a lot. But then as I've gotten older and learned more about her, it's like, let's be real. People are like, sometimes the world that they grow up in affects like their beliefs and stuff. And it's like I've found out since then that like Helen Keller, she was a eugenicist, and she supported, like, even though in a lot of ways we see her as a disability rights advocate, like, in a lot of ways she was not necessarily someone that I would consider to always like believe in the rights of the disabled. And so I think it's important that when we're looking at these historical figures, these monumental historical figures, that we don't like overly idealize or overly romanticize them, that we still see them as humans, and that it's okay to love some of the things that someone did while also being like, hey, I don't agree with this other thing that you believed in or this other thing that you did. I think it's important to look at people as like three-dimensional and not just as like heroes and perfect, or else villains and evil and bad. So yeah, I wanted to talk about my thoughts on Helen Keller and like how she's impacted me, and I hope that this video inspires you and that you're having a great day. Bye!